Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Jenn Tran rethinking Jonathon Johnson romance after DWTS premiere. Since Devon Strader broke Jenn Tran's heart on The Bachelorette, fans have been begging for her and Jonathon Johnson to get together. He finished third on her season, and everyone is really shipping them together. They have spent lots of time together since she landed in Los Angeles to compete on Dancing with the Stars. Jonathon was front and center during premiere night to cheer Jenn on. Is there something going on between them? She is spilling the tea. Keep reading to find out more. Is Jenn Tran dating Jonathon Johnson? Rumors have been flying since the Bachelorette finale aired, and Jenn Tran flew to California for Dancing with the Stars. She and Jonathon Johnson stirred up rumors when they began sharing TikToks together. Since then, they have made public outings together, and he was even in the front row cheering her on for the big premiere Tuesday night. Now, people caught up with Jenn to get the scoop if things have changed between her and Jonathon. While Jonathon would be on board with dating Jenn again, she is not there yet. She said, "Honestly, Jonathon's been such an amazing friend of mine, and so great to have someone here in LA to support me and be such a rock for me. And my heart's just, right now, not in the space to date anybody, let alone Jonathon." She added, "But I'm just so excited to see where our friendship goes." What do you think she meant by that last statement? For his part, Jonathon has said if she asked him out, he would say yes. He's open to the possibility of seeing where things could go. She's thankful for support. Bachelorette Jenn Tran also gushed about how happy she is to have support from Bachelor Nation. She has support all around from alums to fans. Jenn hoped she would have left the show with a reliable fiancé. However, it didn't work out how she would have liked. Even though she doesn't have a man, she does have tons of friends who are offering her nonstop support. Susie Evans was even on deck for the big Dancing with the Stars premiere to cheer on and support Jenn. Jenn also gushed that she went to the dancing competition hoping to have a good partner and ended up with a best friend. Jenn has been dancing with Sasha Farber. As the bright lights of the Dancing with the Stars (DWTS) ballroom flickered on, illuminating the sparkle-studded stage, Jenn Tran sat in the front row, her expression a mixture of excitement and something much deeper, thoughtful contemplation. It had only been a few weeks since the finale of her season of The Bachelorette, where she had chosen Jonathon Johnson, the charming and seemingly perfect suitor who had swept her off her feet. But tonight, as she watched the couples twirl, dip, and glide across the floor, something felt different. Something about Jonathon seemed different. For Jenn, the whirlwind romance she had experienced with Jonathon had been nothing short of a dream. His quiet confidence, his magnetic smile, and the way he had seemed to understand her in ways no one else ever had, these were all the reasons she had chosen him in the end. But now, sitting in the audience of DWTS, watching a very different kind of chemistry unfold on stage, Jenn found herself questioning things she hadn't before. The buzz in the ballroom was palpable as the show's opening number concluded. Jenn clapped enthusiastically, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't shake the growing sense of uncertainty that had been creeping into her thoughts ever since she and Jonathon had left the Bachelorette bubble. In the beginning, everything had been smooth, their romance fueled by the excitement of a public relationship, filled with extravagant dates, interviews, and public appearances. But when the cameras were no longer rolling, when the quiet moments became more frequent, Jenn began to notice cracks in the foundation of their connection. Jonathon had been charming, yes, but now that they were back in the real world, Jenn began to see a side of him that didn't quite match the man she had thought she knew. It wasn't that he had changed, rather, she was seeing him through a new lens. The spark, the connection that had felt so real under the Bachelorette spotlight, now seemed dimmer in the face of reality. In sitting here, watching the DWTS premiere, Jenn couldn't help but wonder if it had all been an illusion. If what they had was simply a product of the show, a romance built on a foundation of fantasy. As the first couple of the night took the floor, Jen's gaze wandered over to Jonathon, who was sitting beside her, engrossed in the performance. He seemed relaxed, his hand resting casually on her leg, but something about his demeanor felt off. Was it the way he no longer looked at her with the same intensity? Or was it the fact that lately, their conversations have felt more like small talk than the deep, meaningful exchanges they used to share? Whatever it was, Jenn couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something had shifted between them. The spotlight shifted to the next pair of dancers, and Jenn found herself thinking about what had initially drawn her to Jonathon. He had always been the smooth talker, the one who could make her laugh at the drop of a hat. He had seemed like the perfect partner, handsome, successful, and attentive. But as the weeks passed, she realized that his attentiveness came in spurts, almost as if he was playing a role rather than being his authentic self. While Jonathon thrived in the public eye, Jenn began to feel like an accessory to his success rather than a true partner in their relationship. Jenn shifted in her seat, glancing at Jonathon out of the corner of her eye. He was focused on the dancers, his expression neutral, but Jenn couldn't shake the feeling that his mind was somewhere else too. Maybe he was just as aware of the growing distance between them as she was, but neither of them had spoken about it. It was as if they were both waiting for the other to address the elephant in the room. The next couple to perform was greeted with thunderous applause, but Jenn barely noticed. She was lost in her thoughts, replaying moments from her time with Jonathon, trying to pinpoint when things had started to feel off. Was it after their first public appearance as a couple, when he had seemed more interested in the photographers than in her? Or was it during their last conversation, when he had talked about his future plans, barely mentioning her at all? Jenn sighed softly, her heart heavy with doubt. She wanted to believe that their connection was real, that the love she had felt for Jonathon on the show was still there. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that their relationship had been built on a series of idealized moments, carefully curated by producers and editors. Outside of that environment, their connection seemed to be unraveling. As the final performance of the night came to a close, Jenn stood up, clapping along with the rest of the audience. Jonathon turned to her with a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Jenn smiled back, but her heart wasn't in it. She couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease that had settled over her. As they left the ballroom and stepped into the cool night air, Jenn knew she couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. She needed to talk to Jonathon, to figure out where they stood. She wasn't sure if their relationship could survive the transition from reality TV to real life. But she knew she had to be honest with herself, and with him, about how she was feeling. "Jonathon," she said softly as they walked towards the car, her voice filled with uncertainty. He turned to her, his brow furrowing in concern. "What's wrong?" Jenn took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I think we need to talk." The look of concern on Jonathon's face deepened, but he nodded. "Okay, let's talk." As they stood there, under the soft glow of the streetlights, Jenn realized that this conversation would determine the future of their relationship. She wasn't sure what the outcome would be, but she knew that she couldn't keep ignoring the doubts that had been plaguing her for weeks.